you know that there is a program in Nigeria that helps persons with disabilities access and retain jobs without worrying about the extra cost of disability? Well, now you know. Today on Bikeability, we are discussing the National Access to Work Scheme Framework for persons with disabilities. It's a game changer for the employment of persons with disabilities in Nigeria. And as usual, I'm not alone. Joining me are my colleagues, my friends, my buddies.
Yes. Adeolu Kilako is my name.
Yeah, my name is George Dominic, and today we are having a very important person in our midst. Our guest for this episode of the podcast is none other than Dr. Adebayo Adebukola. He is a person with visual impairments, a disability advocate, and has been doing wonders in the disability community. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Adebayo.
Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, Dr. Adebo. It's actually very good to see you and hear from you as well. So, but let's go into the whole thing. So, Dr. Adebo, I wanted to tell us one thing that people don't know about you. One thing.
Yeah.
One thing we don't know. We know you're a consultant. We know you're a disability expert. We don't want to know the serious stuff. One relaxing thing that people don't know about you.
I don't know. I said anything I do that people don't know. Hence we call it anyway.
Maybe something that makes you happy.
Yeah.
And doctor, people see you as that serious,
Very serious,
technical
doctor,
person.
like,
What the thing you do are more technical.
Consultants.
But then there are some lighter sides to
you.
that people do not know. They just see Dr. Adebayo.
Okay, I like to sit out on
Okay.
as evening sit outs.
Okay.
I'm a very quiet person generally.
Yeah.
More of an introvert
Okay.
and more on the serious side, but I still like
Oh my
to sit out because I don't mix easily. I don't mix when the environment is not very formal.
Okay.
So, but if you take me to a social gathering where people are eating and dancing, I might just be lost.
Dr. Adebayo, do you mean that you didn't play that football, that soccer game you play? They play in school. There is this soccer game that persons with visual impairment used to play in school. You didn't play that soccer game, that sound.
Of course, as a child, I enjoyed my childhood.
Okay.
So in school, we played ball, we did everything other children did.
Hmm.
Do you enjoy music?
Yeah, I mean, I love music.
So what kind of music?
Any good music that makes sense, as well organized. I don't like noise.
Okay.
A lot of noisy things.
Maybe do you have a favorite instrument that you would love to play, or maybe you play?
Yeah, any musical instrument that make good sound. I love sample sound. That's what I'm saying. Any instrument, be it drums, piano.
Okay.
I love the saxophone. But
saxophone.
I never went to
Yeah.
Yeah, but Dr. Adebo, if you are not doing this disability inclusion expert thing and all, what career path would you rather want to have? Where are we going
I
to
love
see
the
you?
media a lot. I actually wanted to be. I love being behind cameras or producing,
Interesting.
presenting. I love the media, radio, TV, and all of that. But I never got to do that. That was one of the things I love doing a lot. I love putting media things together.
It's not too late.
So on the flip side, he still be celebrated through the media. Not necessarily producing.
Exactly.
I love media a lot. I like and producing audiovisuals.
Okay, so Dr. Debayo, please tell us, give us a holistic knowledge, if I have to put it like that, about the framework. What is it? What are those salient provisions that we need to know about the framework?
The access to work
scheme
for persons with disabilities is not new globally. It's just that it's not something that is very popular.
Okay.
It's a process that builds on the premise that there are additional or extra costs or we call it disability costs,
Mm-hmm.
that people with disabilities or those that care for them or those that engage them or those that, you know, wherever they are, there's always a disability cost to bear
Mm.
by persons with disabilities or those around them, stakeholders around them, be it educators, employers, caregivers, and so on, or parents.
Mm.
So now, in the area of jobs, employment, and all of them, certainly in the formal sector,
Yeah.
persons with disabilities don't get employed because of these additional costs.
Extra costs. Mm.
For example, I'm a blind person. If, for example, if I sit for an interview and I come out, I do very well as a blind person, and there's another person who is not blind who also probably got the same score with me,
Mm.
or maybe I have an edge,
Yeah.
slight edge over the person who is not blind. Now, the employer might now look at other things.
Mm.
Okay, yes, you've done well, but if I employ you, I'll spend extra costs
Mm-hmm.
getting some things to make you work, to
Mm.
make work easy for you.
Yeah.
But the other person who also did well, but maybe not not very well as much, but just slightly below me.
Yeah.
Maybe let's say I scored 10, the other person scored 8 or 9.
Mm.
Now, yes, ideally, this person who scored 10
To get the job, yeah.
and if I happen to be a blind person, then the employer might think, oh, if I employ this person now, I'll be looking for some more
Reasonable accommodations.
all those things.
Yeah.
You know, and then the employer then thinks, so if I employ this other person, it's not as if it's done badly too. I won't spend all of this. And because they're in business, they want to spend less and make more profit.
That's true.
So they then choose the person without disability, despite the fact that the person with disability is the most qualified. So the access to work scheme now says that, okay, let the government bear that cost, take the
Okay.
cost of those additional disability costs away from the employer
Or persons
or-
with disability.
or persons with disabilities. So they now don't have to think of, oh, if I employ him, I need to spend more. And so they can now employ the right person. But ab initio, he was the most
Qualified. Yeah.
So that's a nutshell to describe the entire access to work scheme. So it's a process whereby government collaborates with private sector employers to offtake the additional disability costs they would have had to bear when they employ persons with disabilities. Like I said, it's not new. It's done in the UK. And here in Nigeria, we're about the first African country to put this in there.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
That's also
So, well done, Natalia. I'm just thinking, not that government needs to collaborate with the private sector. Even the government itself, I mean, Nigerian government, do they have provision for this reasonable accommodation for persons with disability within the public sector? I think that's where we should even start.
That is actually
Okay.
Yeah, that's where we should start
Okay.
from.
To be honest,
And agencies.
to be honest, and you'll be surprised, I will say yes, they do.
Interesting.
yes.
Yes, only last week in Lagos State,
Yes.
Lagos State Office for Disability Affairs gave out assistive devices.
Not only that, Lagos State is like another continent, another country of its own.
of government.
Okay.
And since you said government, whether it's national
Yeah, to be
or
fair,
national
Yes.
or
it's
local,
government
and
state.
even at the federal level,
Yes.
you go to some MDs,
Mm.
they take very good care of their staff with disability.
Mm.
It's just that we are not collecting the data evidence.
Okay.
You'll be surprised how much for some government agencies put in place to support their workers with
Disability.
like I just give you an example in Lagos, and there are in so many other states too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these things have been going on quietly. But you see, the thing is that they are not institutionalized. There is no framework. There's no sustainability. So it is now that we are now putting the whole pieces together to make it more, to make government more committed. Let it not be a matter of charity, or a matter of whims and caprice, or let it not be on the whims and caprice of whosoever is in power.
Yeah.
Let it be a compulsory requirement for government and other employers to do. so that they do not discriminate against qualified people with disabilities when they seek employment. So that's what we're just trying to do. Some of these things have been happening, few and far in between, yes,
Yeah.
but it's not as if they're not. Even in the private sector that we talk about,
Mm-hmm.
we know some private employers, yes, especially the big ones, like First Bank,
Okay.
okay, and some other of the big employers. They support their disabled employees, the few ones they employ.
Interested.
They train them, they send them abroad for training, and all of those things.
The fact that they even employ persons with disability is a laudable one.
Yeah, we are not actually on ground zero, but what we are trying to do is to organize better,
Yeah.
is to now achieve, amplify the process. Let it not be few and far in between. Let it be, a mandatory or a requirement for all employers, and that's what the law says now. Now, we didn't have a law to mandate people to do this. Now there is a Disability Act that says yes, 5% of your of the workforce
for
this, and there's just discrimination. Workplaces should have reasonable and all of those things that is in the law. So now the law is making it mandatory. Before it was based on the discretion of the employer, be it government or the private sector. So that's what we're trying to do now. And the import of this again is that it's now going to increase employment opportunities. People, make it more accessible to persons with disability. I have been discriminated against both in the public and private sector.
Really?
Yes, based on my disability. I had a very senior government official who told me, like, you can't work in the public service, civil service.
Can you imagine?
Because he's ignorant of the fact that even under his leadership as a head of service, there are PWDs already working in the civil service. He doesn't know. Okay? There are people like that who don't even know that there are PWDs in the. I've seen a person with disability once share an experience. He ran into a permanent secretary who saw him and was asking, what was this person doing here? And they told him, he said, well, say what? How can someone like this work here? Say, and he almost made the young lady lose her job, but for quick intervention, people had to enlighten him. That's a permanent secretary who had never come across
For with
a person with
disability.
disability in the
That's really sad.
If I imagine how he rose to become a permanent secretary, I have never met
Someone with
the person
disability.
in the civil service that he works. So imagine that, it happens like that. But you see, that's the beauty of the law. It's now making it mandatory. All the states are now enacting the law.
Okay.
We have it at federal level. Even local governments are joining, are putting policies there in place to ensure that people with disabilities are better engaged and cared for.
There's something that the word said about government being very compliant in terms of accessibility. But I just want to mention anyway, we've done a couple of accessibility audits and government structures
Facilities.
across states in Nigeria. They were not nearly compliant.
I didn't say they are compliant.
The structures.
No, the structures may not be compliant.
Yeah.
But I think he was talking about
Talking about
employment.
employment.
Employment,
yeah.
But
yes.
of course, the structures, no structures.
But when you employ somebody, make it difficult for the person to access the place. It's another issue.
One of the problem is that before now, employment was based on charity.
Yeah.
In fact, I was in 2017 when I was in the on the board of Lagos State Office for Disability Affairs. Then we got employment. That was the first time government employed the largest number of PWDs anywhere in Nigeria. We employed about 350
Wow.
PWDs. And I now visited one of the ministries for something else entirely. And it happened to be one of the ministries where one of the new PWD employee was posted to. So while I was in my friends, the person I went to see is a director in the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget. And while discussing when this lady, who I just the lady with disability worked, and the man was telling the lady with disability, oh, why did you bother coming? You don't bother coming. When we meet, we will call you, just stay at home.
Can you imagine?
I didn't interrupt you. I allowed you to say what you want to say and allowed the lady to leave. I now had to take time to educate you. So that's to tell you that most times employment there was based on charity. And It wasn't that they felt they could contribute anything. They just felt okay, just come and
Let's
be taking
help.
salaries.
So they don't need their services. Just come and be collecting
So
salary.
how to educate him thoroughly. I don't tell you how to not to come to office. I'm encouraging laziness. If I wasn't working hard, I won't be here to come and
Of
see you and
course.
talk to you. What you need to do is to put in place the enabling environment.
Yeah.
What does you need to work with? What are the tools, the kind of guidance or whatever it is, and that was how the man how to learn on how to do. So you find out in many places, even the private sector, a lot of them they just employ you. Sometimes they will employ a person with disability and send the person to go and do something else, maybe go to a special school for PWDs or somewhere. NNPC did that to some people, employ somebody and send the person to a school for the blind.
So what's the relation between NNPC and School for the Blind? Is it an arm of NNPC?
There is no thing he can do
Within NNPC.
Which is wrong.
which is
That's
wrong.
real. Which is very wrong.
Okay, would they do that to a person with that
They won't.
disability? So why employ a person and then send him to
School
you
for the blind,
understand?
yeah.
So there are different orientations when people when employers offer jobs to PWDs, and this is what the access to work scheme is trying to correct. Okay, so we know we are not entirely on ground zero, but some of the wrong perceptions, some of the wrong methods, wrong things is what the access to work scheme, apart from providing assistive devices to those that have been employed, even those that are being called up for interviews.
Yes.
The scheme provides that if you are a deaf person, for example, and you have been called up for interview, the access to work scheme, if you apply and we see all the documentations, you will be provided with an interpreter, so that will not be an excuse for the employers to say, oh, we don't have an interpreter and blah blah blah. And when they are recruiting, it is not right for them to ask for whether you have a disability until you have been probably shortlisted for maybe interview or whatever.
Really?
Yes, because the idea is to ensure that nobody uses that
To discriminate.
Okay.
all right. That's the reason, because if they know that this from the point of selection, shortlisting, whether it's long listing or shortlisting. No, yes, because sometimes the long lists, they just weed out the ones that are not relevant, and then after the long listing, they now do the shortlisting and all of that. So they don't have to ask for whether or not you have
But Father, I want to argue something here.
Yeah.
So people are applying, and then we're talking about increasing the number of persons with disability employed. For example, we're looking at 5% at least minimum. So that doesn't mean that is you could actually go 10%, but minimum 5% as provided by the Act.
Yes.
So if you put out an employment, then of course you normally specify persons with disabilities are encouraged
From
That is ideal. Yes.
Yeah, so but I'm also saying that what of if you ask the persons to indicate their disability just so that you can also
Intentionally
increase
short-
At the
them.
point of writing a letter, if you ask everyone to submit a letter, you don't need my disability status at that point. It's only when you want them to come and write a test, either it's oral or written or any format, then you can ask people who will need reasonable accommodation to indicate. Do you get what I
logistics.
But when you ask people to submit like expression of interest, that's not the time to start asking people whether or not they are male or female or they are a person with disability. You can encourage people with disabilities, women, all of them to apply. You can indicate it in your call to say we are an equal opportunities organization. Like if South Africa wants to recruit now, even though we know you're a disability focused organization, but then you have to start asking people what kind of disability they have at the point of submitting EOI or application.
But Dr. Debayo,
Yes.
in an instance where maybe an organization is recruiting for 10 positions and they want to be very intentional about having 5 PWDs and 5 non-PWDs. So this is where the whole
Indicate your
Indicate.
status.
We are not
So
saying
that we
that.
select
We are not
intentionally.
saying please definitely. You know there are stages in the recruitment process.
Yes.
when you ask people to submit letters of expression of interest or application or
Yes,
whatever,
yes.
there you do not need, because at that point of shortlisting, you don't need to know whether the person
Has
is a
disability
PWD or not. All right. If you do that, then in most cases, that's where you give opportunity for
Discrimination.
discrimination to happen. But at the point where you are shortlisted based on merits, you now want to, do further
Interrogation.
interrogation, whether by writing or then you can then indicate. Then by so doing, you wouldn't have, left out a person with disability because he's a PWD. You would have left him out because he didn't qualify. Do you get it? So that's the standard practice. There's a point where you ask for more details. There's a point where you ask for, and people have the right to disclose or not
Not
to
to
disclose.
disclose. Yeah, true.
And their non-disclosure should not mean that they will then be discriminated or left out.
So, Dr. Adebayo,
Yes.
you mentioned, you gave an example of a recruitment done by NNPC and then
Yes.
posted these people to
Yes.
school for the blind.
Yes.
As if to say their services are not required. NNPC. You have been part of this access to work scheme from the inception. In fact, you were the consultant who worked on this, tirelessly to ensure that we got to this point. How do you feel when this access to work scheme framework was launched in Lagos? I mean, being a part of this as a person, as a blind person, and then of course you have worked hard on this, and then coming to the point of, launching this document as a policy document to facilitate the employment of persons with disabilities in the private sector.
I don't know if you recorded the event, but I think it was very emotional for me that one had gone through the faith. I mean, the highest levels of discrimination, looking for employment, and then back then one never saw any hope. There was no turn at that. Like
Let you know at the end of the tunnel.
So for me, and now we are almost 30 years after. We are putting this together, and we are the ones involved in rewriting history, writing the wrongs from the past.
Yeah.
So for me, it's more than, it's personal for me. That's right. And like I said that day, I said we are not just now seeing light at the end of the tunnel. We are even out of the tunnel.
We have to turn it completely.
So we are really, really in the light right now, and I
That's good
think
to hear.
Nigeria can only do better by implementing this framework. And I'm happy that the Disability Commission have made commitments and to ensure that the scheme takes off almost immediately.
Beautiful.
And beyond that, I also want to add that as we speak, the federal government has captured this access to work scheme as one of the high impact deliverables
Wow.
of the commission.
That's a good one.
So
This is impressive.
the commission now has no hiding place. How to implement it.
It must be implemented.
It's evidence documented by the government. So it's not just on paper now. It has to happen. And so for me, it's a dream come true. I don't know what else to call it.
So, Shakadebayo, of course, you understand your excitement about this, but I usually say this: there's some English words that I don't understand because I need to understand it so that when probably persons with disabilities appreciate for this implementation, they won't get confused too. So, for my own interest and for the interest of people that are watching us, the framework states that the commission, right, will provide financial, material, and technical support. So those are three big English words. So please, I want to tell us, state it, the financial support, to what limit, to what extent, the material support, what are these material things?
Okay.
The technical support, to what extent? Let us know which all those things.
Let me start from the technical.
Okay.
The technical is that if staff rights will be employing, for example, and they don't know how to go about making sure that the process is in disability inclusive.
Okay.
Staff can then call on the commission and say, please, we're conducting recruitment, and in line with this scheme, we want our process to be disability inclusive.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the commission can then provide technical advice and support in that regard to ensure that happens. That's one part of the scheme. The other part, in terms of financial, is that when a PWD applies a job, he might need, for example, if it's a blind person, I need a sighted guy to take him to maybe the interview, many of the interview. I need a sign language interpreter. Yeah. If it's a person on wheelchair, I might need the travel body, things like that. So if we apply, he or she applies in due time, and it's processed, you can get that kind of support, and to get them to the venue of the interviews and all of that. Okay. Then if you have been employed and you have a vehicle like a person on wheelchair, you want your vehicle to be adapted. Mind you, the scheme will not buy car for anybody. But if you are a person on wheelchair, you need your car adapted for you. So it becomes accessible, you can drive it yourself, then the scheme can support such a thing. Right? So then if you have been employed and you need assistive devices, okay, you can apply that assistive device to perform your work. So through your employer, you can then apply that, I will need a laptop computer with screen reader. Then the scheme can provide this for you. Or I will need a guide cane, I'll need a wheelchair, I need things like that will make you work efficiently. Then they can provide some of the support. When we were drafting this document, we reached out to each of the disability clusters. Asked what they will need in a typical work environment, formal work environment. And they listed all of those, and they're all contained in the documents. So we didn't just sit down and formulate these things. We consulted widely, and everybody made contribution, by the critical stakeholders. So and we validated this, that people came to see it, and no one can say, they are not aware. So people-led process.
Mr. Kiman, please, as a follow-up, because I have a major worry about this framework. And so for me, it's about the functionality. Okay. So he mentioned about you applying early before you get. So what's in an organization where you're asked to come for interview in 2 days, on the following day? That's one part of it. Then secondly, the commission is only in Abuja. Okay, someone in Anambra State or someone in Rivers State might want to go for an interview there. So how do they communicate to the commission? Do you understand, in Abuja? Or do we have states?
Or maybe it's the state disability commission that will key into this accessible scheme.
Yes.